This is Boomer Life on CIL 650.
Welcome back to the program. I'm Sterling Fox, joined in studio by Dawn Schooler from Jericho Counseling. Dawn is the Director of Clinical Services. Jericho Counseling, actually 3 locations around town. In Vancouver at 805 West Broadway, downtown at 510 Burrard, and right around Metrotown in Burnaby, right there at 4720 Kingsway. Dawn was starting to walk us through, first of all, identified the most likely reasons that any of us would seek counseling these days are anxiety, depression, relationships, and addiction. Those are the 4 primary categories that people end up seeking out counseling. And we were talking about anxiety and all of the when does it start? When does anxiety start?
Well, if we track back, most folks can share a bit of history around, well, it was kind of there. I noticed it a little bit more when I got a certain teacher at school who I really looked up to, and they really were, had a very high standard for me. Or they can pick out a precipitating event.
Really?
But there's more likely that it's just sort of a gradual creep. A creep where it's like just a little, and then there's a little more, and then at some point it's like, hey, I think it's a problem.
Right. There's a lot more attention being paid these days in the school system, certainly than when I went to school, about bullying.
Yes.
It was a fact of life, certainly for all of us when we went to school, and there really had to be some extraordinary behavior for any of it to be identified. It was just part of the deal.
Yeah.
So is being the object of bullying a likely cause for anxiety?
Well, there's absolutely 100% certainty that someone who's the victim of bullying will be anxious.
Of course.
Yeah,
that's the point of the bullying.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine, and many of us can recall going to school and being like, okay, I can't wear those pants because every time I wear those pants, they make so much fun of me and they hurt me. And your mom's like, you got to wear those pants. It's Wednesday. Get those pants on. And
sure.
You're like, oh no, I wear those pants and I got to pack my other ones. And you're thinking ahead and trying to figure out how to survive.
Dodge the bullies.
Yeah.
Right.
So 100% true that any child who's the victim and target of bullying will have symptoms of anxiety.
Now let's go back to coping. That little kid in the schoolyard being pushed around by other bigger, louder, more obnoxious people.
Right.
Now we're supposed to come with this self-contained stack of coping capabilities.
Right. Yeah.
Where's the coping? What does the kid do? The kid survives.
Sure.
And is back at school the next day, but probably not very happy to be back at school the next day.
Well, no, and I sit with clients who say, I was bullied at school. And, well, first of all, they don't say that. They come into me and say, I'm struggling with relationships, for instance.
Sure, yeah.
And then we look at what's going on there, and we build some skills, and we unearth some different capacities and ways to engage. And then we get to, I was bullied at school. And you go, okay. Mm-hmm. And then how did you manage that? Well, I'd show up just at the stroke of school starting, and I'd be on the 3 o'clock track team out of there.
That's right.
Back to my home where it was safe. And so I managed, I coped, I got through school, but I didn't learn how to build relationships because it wasn't safe for me. And you go, oh, and now you're struggling in your relationships. That makes a lot of sense. So then again, it's the way that people cope. Very often it sort of shrinks the world so that I'm not getting all of the other experiences that I might need to be successful later.
You throw up the barriers, right? Right, just out of self-defense, if nothing else. Now, how does the education system help here, Dawn? Are they making a difference? I mean, you got Pink Shirt Day and all that loud stuff going on, but really, is it altering behavior, or is it mostly cosmetics?
Well, I get to spend time around, little ones like sort of, 6, 8 years old up to, 12, 15, 17, and both in the clinic and in my life. And do you know what's different in terms of what I'm seeing real value is that these young people, they really are learning differently that difference is much more okay than it was certainly when I was going to school or you were going to school.
Right.
There's a different value. There's a higher value on difference than there used to be.
Okay.
We're not as scared of it, I don't think. And again, I'll go back to evolutionary biology. We're wired to be on guard for people who look and act differently than us and speak a different language, because that's usually what was happening when my village was being taken over.
Right.
So it's all wired in that
Sure.
I want to be on guard. So, but then again, that's the primitive part of my brain. I get this wonderful, prefrontal cortex here that allows me to go, are we cavemen in villages? Do I really need to be scared if I don't speak the same language? Probably not. Actually, want to play? So I really, the teaching that's happening of allowing that stuff to be overridden, those first responses to be overridden in a kind, compassionate way to myself and to others, that stuff is having a payoff, I think.
So is it reasonable to draw the conclusion that people who suffer considerable anxiety in their adult lives have probably had a pretty stiff dose of it as little children too?
Well, I like to say two things. One is, whatever I pay attention to gets bigger, right? So if I'm thinking about buying a new car and I think I might want a white one, guess what I see everywhere now, all day, every day?
All those white cars. Yeah.
So whatever I pay attention to gets bigger. The other is, whatever I practice, I get really good at. So if I practice being anxious, I'll get really, really good at being anxious. If I practice being I like to think of those fellows who do the play-by-play calling with the NHL and with hockey. You know that they practice that in their bedrooms from the time they were like 8 years old, right?
Absolutely.
He shoots, he scores.
Oh, sure.
And so whatever I practice,
we all
I get
did
really
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Some of us didn't get to play the hockey stuff, but I could do a shoots, he scores.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I was a goalie. My brother used to shoot the puck
Oh,
at me.
okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So
all right.
he shot. Anyhow. But yeah, that if I'm practicing, I get really good at it, and that's the piece that anxiety. We don't even know we're doing it. We don't know we're practicing anxiety by scanning for particular thoughts that support anxiety, as opposed to...
Give me an example, because I got the thing with the car. And
Okay.
Suppose, and we were talking with Suzanne, our friend here at the work, and Suzanne, she's a mom, and lovely little boy, and you asked her, well, when you were pregnant, all of a sudden, did you notice how pregnant everybody else all of a sudden was? Because there you were in that condition, and all of a sudden your radar changes.
Yes.
So and she said, absolutely.
Yeah, she just got a big smile.
Oh,
like, that's me. Yep.
Right. So how does that apply then in terms of practicing anxiety? What do you mean?
Well, I could let's imagine I'm going in for a job interview. There's some things I could pay attention to that would make it much more likely that I will be able to perform well in that interaction and give myself an opportunity to be hired. Things like, I went to school. I paid attention. I've researched this company. I have a good resume. I've had a job like this before. I can tell this story and this story. So I'm paying attention to those thoughts and reminders. I'm going to go into that meeting, and when those questions come to me, I'm feeling quite confident. I've reminded myself of the things I'm good at and my background. Okay. There's the other way where I could be paying attention to 13th job interview this week. Probably gonna suck at this one too. You know what? I can never remember the right thing to say when someone asks me this. My mom told me I wasn't any good at this stuff. I remember that. So if I'm paying attention to that and practicing that, I'm not gonna do well.
Right. And your friends notice this sort of negative, this black cloud that sort of follows you around wherever you go, and I suppose there's tolerance for it for a while, but even your friends are going to go, you're not doing yourself any favors here. Of course you weren't going to get that last job. You convinced yourself you weren't before you even showed up at the blinking interview.
Yeah, well, and again, we don't even know we're doing it. And so one of the great gifts that friends can give to us is to say, I love you, and I care about you, and I think you're a fantastic human. It seems that you're much more likely to pay attention to the lemon than maybe the lemonade. Do you ever think that might be true? And very often we'll react with, shut up.
None of your business.
You're wrong. None of your business.
Right,
really good one. And the hope is that it was delivered in a way that I didn't feel foolish and stupid, and maybe I'll reflect on it a bit later and go, maybe he's right. And then I start to watch for it a little differently. very often others can see these things in us before we can.
Yeah, you'll hear sort of cheerfully say, well, you're getting awfully negative in your dotage, aren't you? Around a card table or something as people are conversing.
Yes.
So friends do pick up on these clues and cues.
Yes.
And if they bounce them back at you, even though you may not be inclined to want to hear them, there's still, you're being presented with irrefutable facts.
Well, feedback is such a gift. We don't get a lot of really honest feedback these days.
True.
People go, do you like my haircut? Yes. You're going to say, well, I liked your other one better. But that's beautiful that someone would tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they won't tell you the truth, what value is there in even having an exchange? But we don't give one another much feedback these days, honest feedback. And so I don't know if most of us even know what to do with it, to be honest.
We would just shut down because it would be such harsh criticism. Oh my gosh, all I said was, how do I look?
Yeah.
Or do you like my haircut?
Yeah.
Well, not actually, I don't. I like that last one you had. Why did you do that?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, next time I'll just not bother asking.
Exactly.
Well, okay. We need to take a break. We're going to talk about depression, which seems to flow almost axiomatically out of anxiety. Our guest from Jericho Counseling is the boss. It's Dawn Schooler. She's the Director of Clinical Services at all three of those Jericho Counseling locations, at 805 West Broadway, at 510 Burrard, and the first one at 4720 Kingsway near Metrotown. We're back with lots more here on Boomer Life right after this.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.